Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Rivalz Race Chat. I'm Adam Ross. I'll be joined by Clinton Geoffrey very shortly. Just before we came on, he pretended to have some technical difficulties. I know it's because I showed up late because I had technical difficulties last week. It's just kind of a tit for tat thing. I know he's going to be
Am I good,
back.
Spencer?
Ah, you
Hey.
sound beautiful.
All right, here we go. I touched my microphone right before we went on the air, and everything got screwed up. So,
Listen, everyone has a different routine, Clinton. Your superstition is yours. You touch your microphone before you perform. I wipe a little bit of sweat away before I get rolling. We've
cute.
all got our quirks.
Well, Adam, let's talk about this week. Sometimes we come into the show with Tuesday morning and we got one topic or no guests, and we're like, man, how are we going to get through it? And then other weeks are like this week where it just pounds the stories at us one after another all week long. And we have a lot to talk about. So, just some of the quick topics we're going to discuss here or hope to get through here tonight. We're going to talk about our new partners coming up right then. We got some new advertisers joining on the fold. It's great to have them with us. Matt Weaver, one of the national writers for covers a lot of the big series, including NASCAR. I originally reached out to him last week to ask him to come on and talk about the new Stars late model, and then everything broke loose in the NASCAR world. So we'll be talking Chastain, Ty Gibbs, all the weekend. Wild stuff there as well. Also, going to talk about the Oscar merging with APC and what that can possibly mean for the future there. Talk about Announcer Summit, World Finals this week, and some wild stuff in the Short Track Super Series at Delaware. So a lot to cover. Of course, if you have any questions or comments or anything you want us to talk about, we would like to hear from you. And I got to figure out, someone was talking last week and saying they're invisible. You're not invisible. Some weeks the hour just gets away from us, and we definitely want your comments and questions. So if
Yes.
there's anything you want to talk about.
Well,
Be-
so I did something a little different this week, Clinton, because to me that the Ross Chastain situation was such a big deal. I made a post about it on my own Facebook page. Got some phenomenal answers, some phenomenal conversation. So sometimes I just think it's great to put it out there even before we come on a Tuesday night to get some thoughts. Had some interesting opinions on how what they could compare that move to, and some people just couldn't. I'm at a bit of a loss, but I've come up with something that I think can work. We'll see if you and our guest agree.
All right, before we bring Matt Weaver on, let's talk about some new business we've got going on. In conjunction with some of our other great partners, we've got a few more joining the fold. So, of course, Fast Eddie was a great supporter with us this summer, along with Quick Wick and our friends at NTN Bearings, Mighty Wipes, and Slack. Of course, we want to welcome a new group to the fold, Adam. This will be a True North Bet here on my hat. True North Bet is going to be joining us. They have all full suite of everything you could want for your online gaming needs. Make sure you check them out. They're Canada's own sportsbook, so betting on everything from the NFL, NHL, NASCAR, right on through,
Yeah,
including
every sport.
casino games. So,
I was at the same meeting you were. Why did
yes.
I not get a hat? Why do you have a hat and I don't?
Well, that's an easy question because you would never wear a hat anyways. And when we were walking out, I picked this up and said, Miles, do you want this back? And he said, you can keep it. So there it is. But anyways, a full slate of gaming they've got right there. These are just screenshots I took off my phone, so it's fully mobile. You can play it anywhere you want. Watch for us to get into some more racing gaming locally around here as we get into it and other products that you'll see coming online. So we're excited to have
And
TrueNorth.bet. Go on, check them out.
and our ask is this, folks. I know a lot of you like to gamble. A lot of you gamble in different places online, pro line, this and that. Consider supporting someone who is supporting motorsports. Of course, TrueNorth.bet is on multiple race cars, and now they're affiliated with us at GeForce TV. So if you would give them a chance, try it out. Give us your feedback. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, the other product we want to mention is cigarport.ca. They're all the best cigars you can order from around the world, shipped across Canada, duty free and tax free. All the best products you could ever imagine. And whether it's Dominican, Nicaraguan, Cuban, whatever origination you want your smokes from or your cigars, they got it all. Great gift boxes, everything you could ever want at great prices. So make sure you check it out, cigarport.com. Also, great supporter of a lot of teams there. And, Adam's going to complain, but I know he got one of these too. So this is our the sample box we were given. Some great products there for you to check out. Some great stuff. So cigarport.ca. If the Stogie is your game, that's the name you want right there. So cigarport.ca. Great to have them on board as well. We're talking about all kinds of great products and programs here
I've
with their cigars as well.
I've already lost mine, Clint. I went and showed my son Devin, and he kept it.
I figured yours wouldn't last long. Let's bring in Matt Weaver, one of the guests we're going to have on tonight. So we'll talk about some great things. Derek Doxitator says, Clinton, Adam, do you think the Action Sprint Tour will reach a national sprint car series like the World of Outlaws? I do want to talk about that. I would love to address that. So let's get on our first guest here because we're very happy to have Matt Weaver join us. We know he's busy with lots of stories to write and probably gets lots of requests like this. So, Matt, thank you for joining us here on our little program on Tuesday.
The only reason I agreed to come on today when you reached out like earlier this weekend is there was nothing going on. I knew it would be kind of quiet and peaceful, and why not fill a Tuesday up with something? Because what could possibly happen? No, all kidding aside, I love being on this show, and I tell you guys that all the time. And we have so much ground to cover. I don't even know where you guys want to start. So let's get after it.
Well, if I can take the reins quick, Adam, a couple things. So let's quickly get why we had you on before we get into the really juicy ones. This new Stars Late Model Tour, you follow late model series around. We're kind of in touch with here with the APC series, and we follow everything going on out west. Of course, the Pro Stock Tour in the Maritimes here. What do you make of this new series that is kind of being talked about as a replacement to, the ASA?
Yeah, so I'm 34 years old, and I didn't do ASA even as a kid. I'm from the Deep South, so we had All Pro, which later became the Slim Jim Southeast NASCAR Series. So any sort of national pavement late model tour is something that was before my time. But everyone talks about the glory days of, whether it's the Slim Jim All Pro Series or it's the USAR Pro Cup or, obviously ASA. Pavement hasn't had that for a long time, 20, 25 years. And we see World of Outlaws, sprint cars and late models and all these different national tours. And, pavement super late models is super segmented. Southwest Tour, Northwest Tour, Southern Super Series in the Southeast, CRA in Mid-America, the Midwest Tour in the Upper Midwest. And it's been kind of a pipe dream for a long time, having the sort of unity to create a national tour. And Bob Sargent of Track Enterprises, who he is a promoter for a lot of different series. He does USAC, and he's done the Outlaws. He's done NASCAR and ARCA. He's purchased the CRA. He's purchased the Midwest Tour. He's entered into an agreement with Southern Super Series, and starting next year, for the first time since ASA folded, there will be it's hard to call it national because it is only east of the Mississippi, but it's the first foray for a national super late model tour.
Yeah. ASA wasn't truly a national tour. It was just the biggest and best thing going, and it produced so many great racers. So keep in mind, it still has not been done. And one of the fun things about that era, the race that was just in Nashville on the weekend, Matt, used to be such a big deal because you would get the, Jody Ridleys from down south. You'd get Butch Miller from farther up north, like all the greats, Junior Hanley from Canada. They would all converge on that track, and all the series would get together to put on a mega show.
That was the stock car connection, right? It was the ASA and All Pro coming together. And really, this is the stock car connection of our era. And true to that history, there's going to be a 10-race schedule, and it's all going to build to the All-American 400. So it's going to honor that tradition. The champion will be crowned at Fairground Speedway. And what happened on Friday is Bob Sargent, given that all the big names were in Nashville for the All-American, did the first kind of formal presentation for what he wanted it to be. There's still a lot of details to be worked out. We're going to go to PRI in December, and we're going to have the full schedule, the full marketing platform. They're going to have something kind of similar to the World of Outlaws Platinum agreement, to where there will be a package for the full-time drivers to chase all 10. It's going to be a work in progress. And the main thing that I heard Bob say is that this is going to be a collaborative effort. If this is going to work, it's because the teams are going to embrace it and help Bob build it together.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough when you bring all these different series and a couple different rules. But hey, we wish them all the best, and we'll be watching that one to see how that comes apart. A lot of other things went down this weekend since we made this initial call, as you said, Matt. We can go to Ty Gibbs first, I guess. Chronologically, Saturday it all went down. Adam, do you want to set it up and then get Matt's thing? Why don't you set up for someone who didn't see it?
Yeah, I can do that. Great battles late in the race, and it was a classic Martinsville struggle. There was a lot of contact, there was a lot of rubbing, there was a lot of beating and banging, but cars were getting moved, but not wrecked. Some wrecked. Great race, green-white checkered. Now, to set the whole table, they're trying to race into the Final Four to get to championship day. Ty Gibbs was locked in. Who else was locked in that four?
Josh Berry was already locked in, and they were
Josh
the only
Berry's
two.
back. Yes. So you're either going to point your way in or win your way in. And Brandon Jones, Ty Gibbs' teammate, was in position to win his way in. Green-white checkered. There was more rubbing, more moving, but the difference, white flag comes out. Leading the race is Brandon Jones down into turn one. My perspective of it, Ty Gibbs just drove in and routed him, hit him hard enough to spin him up into the wall. Ty Gibbs goes on and wins the race. His teammate Brandon Jones is left out of the playoffs because he needed that win to get into the playoffs. He wasn't going to get in on points. So I think that that was the start of the tough time Ty Gibbs was going to have. He got out of the car. He did a huge burnout celebration, got out of the car, acknowledged the fans, and probably gave one of the more regrettable quotes that a driver ever will when I'm paraphrasing, Jesus was hated too. Something along those lines.
Jesus was hated first.
Thank you. It's a young person being a young person and probably not processing everything he should have processed to say that. So everything he did just made the situation worse. Did I wrap that in a bit of a bow? Would you agree with that, Matt?
Yeah. The thing is like, I go back to Ty Gibbs did not have to win that race. He had already won, had locked himself in. There was an opportunity for Joe Gibbs Racing. I want to emphasize the Gibbs part of that. That is his family's team. It is his grandfather's team. Had the opportunity to lock two of their cars into the Final Four, giving JGR a 50% chance to win the championship, giving Toyota a 50% chance to win the championship. And I cannot fathom the thought process of what was going through Ty's head. Now, listen, if he's going to give you the spot, if he's so slow that you can just pass him, all power to you. But he drove into that corner with no intent to turn other than using his teammate's bumper to do it. And keep in mind, he'd already roughed up his other teammate earlier in the day too, in the 18 car. So Joe Gibbs talked about it earlier today and said that he wishes in real time he had done a better job being hands-on, and that there are going to be consequences for his actions. Because keep in mind, Brandon Jones is leaving JGR, but his dad, who is the CEO of Rheem, is still there as a sponsor, as a major sponsor on the 20 Cup car with Christopher Bell. Toyota has to be very upset that they've given Chevrolet 3 of the 4 cars in the championship, Junior Motorsports. And listen, I'm beating up on Ty here. I've known Ty for a long time. I've covered him in late models. And the thing that I always admired about Ty is I thought that he had a reverence and a respect for racing at multiple levels. We have talked about Formula One and sports car. Ty Gibbs is a racing rat, and I mean that like in the most respectful of terms. He eats, chews, sleeps racing, and I know how much he loves this discipline. But this last year has exposed his youth. It's exposed probably some maturity elements that needs to be ironed out. And listen, I think we do have to remember his age. However, the one pushback I would say on that is that you can't be a typical 19-year-old. You can't be just a 20-year-old brat if you want to be a NASCAR Cup Series driver. And all signs are pointing that he's going to be in the 18 car. Those are character flaws that have to be addressed before he gets there, because candidly, if he's going to race the way that he's raced in the Xfinity Series this year and in his limited Cup Series starts, he is going to face a lot of tough lessons by the Cup Series garage, because that will not fly with Kevin Harvick. That will not fly even with his own teammates, Denny Hamlin. That will not fly with a Ross Chastain. And so he's going to have to learn a lot of lessons before February at Daytona.
Matt, so is this a case of a huge misstep and Ty has regrets on Monday, Tuesday? Do you think it's him trying to fill that helmet of Kyle Busch and be the new badass Kyle Busch if he knows he's going to the 18? And thirdly, because that's what we should do when we have a guest on, ask you 3 questions all at once. Being
Three for Dell.
there. I think the last question is do we see from Ty Gibbs this week? Do we see him come out and say, "Hey man, I was fool on Saturday and I need to apologize to everybody," or did you just put those shoulders back and keep on strutting like he did nothing wrong? You said you know him a long time. What's your prediction?
I think this time is different. There's nothing in the past 12 months to indicate that it will be different, but I think it is different because of Toyota and the fact that he's going to be a Cup Series driver, and this is one of their Cup Series sponsors that he just crashed out of the race. So I think we're going to hear a more contrite Ty on Thursday at Media Day. I'm flying out tomorrow to go to Phoenix, so we'll find out together. The thing that is so regrettable about Ty Gibbs taking over for Kyle Busch, and there's a lot of animosity right now from Kyle Busch to Ty, is that Ty has admired Kyle so much. I've heard Ty talk about how much he respects the fire and the tenacity and the drive of a Kyle Busch, and it's kind of really regrettable that there's a little bit of friction between them right now over what's happened with the 18 car. But to your point, Clinton, I think that Ty, because of how much he does admire and revere Rowdy, wants to be like Kyle and has kind of brought in many of those traits. He imbues many of those qualities as a race car driver and as a personality. And the one difference is Kyle Busch. I don't think Kyle Busch wants to be the villain. I think he's been anointed the villain, and it's too late to do anything different. But over the last year and a half, Ty Gibbs feels like he's totally fine with it. And maybe that's just youth and exuberance. But I don't know that right now this Ty Gibbs does care. I don't think Ty has been made to care yet. Maybe this is different. Maybe coach is going to make him care. Maybe Toyota or Ream will make him care. But I think right now he is fine being the villain, and we're going to see how long that's sustainable, because right now it's not sustainable.
To me, Matt, he's not that much different, and Richard Hadler just mentioned it in our comments. I draw more of a comparison to Austin Dillon.
Well, I would say the difference is that with all due respect to Austin, I think Austin is a better race car driver than people give him credit for, and certainly the resume indicates that, the big wins. But I think that as a prospect talent, Ty is a prodigy. He is so incredibly gifted as a race car driver, and I think that sort of recognition in himself, the conviction in himself, and having a lot of people tell you how great you are from an early age, I do think that has a way of kind of doing things to a psyche of a 20-year-old and kind of
For sure.
influencing the
Here's
attitude a little bit.
the one thing I don't forgive that Ty Gibbs did, sorry, Clint, is
Nope.
what he did this weekend is bad for business. And Clint, you grew up in a family business. My dad had a business. If you're 10 years old, you know what's good for the business and you know what's not. I can forgive things that he said being foolish because he's young. I don't forgive him costing his team half a chance at winning that championship, but I dare say he cost them more than half because there's enough people that are angry with him for things that have happened over the season that I think Brandon Jones would have had a hell of a lot better chance to win the title than Ty did. So I actually think even if you're young and immature, you still know the family business and you don't mess with it.
Yeah, so Coach talked about that today. Coach said the biggest message they're trying to impart on Ty is big picture. You don't want to take away the aggression, the hard driving that has made Ty so successful. Maybe you can rein it in a little bit, but you don't want it to go away. But I think what Ty lost sight of in being so cutthroat, win at all costs. I want to win, 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 win. That's his favorite word. Ty's favorite word is win. I promise you. Is that in that moment he lost sight of the big picture of, okay, maybe it's a teammate, whatever, I don't care. He's leaving. I don't think Ty thought through the big picture of that is a major partner, not just a partner. It's not just Brandon Jones' dad or it's Ream. That is a partner that has signed theoretically a long-term deal to continue to be a part of the Cup Series program, the 20 car. Maybe could have been a partner on your car for some races, depending on how that played out. I'm not saying I've heard anything to indicate, J.R. Jones and Ream is going to leave JGR. But there is a version of this story that maybe J.R. Jones says, coach, I am so mad at what Ty did. Our partnership on the 20 car next year, we're done. We're taking that to Hendrick. We're going to take it to JRM. I'm not saying that that's happening, but what coach was trying to tell us that he's telling Ty is there is so much more going on than just Ty Gibbs versus Brandon Jones, the race car drivers. You've got to think even bigger than that. Your name is Gibbs. What are you doing to Joe Gibbs Racing when you do take out Brandon Jones, who is the son of J.R. Jones, Ream? That's a huge factor. And Toyota. Toyota is your biggest benefactor. You can't race at JGR without Toyota and David Wilson and all those guys at, TRD.
Anything else you want to get through there, Adam? On Ty Gibbs? Be good?
What what are the chances Ty Gibbs makes it through Phoenix unscathed?
I was hoping you would ask that. I don't know how much time we have, but I would have said before this weekend that a guy who's raced the way he has this year is not going to win the championship, just because historically, when you have that many people mad at you, the hens come home to roost, or whatever the expression is, right? That eventually the receipts come back around. I thought that about Ross Chastain. And now maybe that's a perfect segue to get to our next topic. But I thought that there's no way Ross Chastain is going to race for a championship, much less, have a chance to win it. And after what I saw on Sunday, I'm convinced he's winning the championship now. So you asked me about Ty, and I think he's got so many enemies. So many people are going to use him up on restarts. Brandon Jones has nothing to lose now. He's made just so many enemies that he can't make it to the checkered flag with any sort of track position. But now, because of Ross Chastain, maybe that's not the case. Maybe everyone is, more bark than bite, because Denny Hamlin never went after Ross either.
Ty Gibbs owes Ross Chastain a big Christmas present.
Yeah,
Like,
he does.
Ty Gibbs was going to be infamous after this weekend. Like he stepped on his weenie multiple times Saturday, and in 24 hours, people completely forgot. Like it's gone. It'll come up next week, but he's not even in the headlines now because what Ross Chastain did was so big, Clint.
Am I crazy for thinking this is like one of the top 5 NASCAR moments of all time. Like the 1979 Daytona 500, the pass that wasn't a pass in the grass.
Yes.
I struggle to think of other moments, but I feel like this is a top 5 NASCAR moment.
Well, is it because we all grew up in the video game age, and it was such a quote unquote video game? Like every broadcaster at that moment called it that. I mean, I've heard the MRN call, I've heard the live TV call with Dale. Everybody instantly said, "Oh my goodness, he did a video game move," and I think that's going to solidify with our generation because we've all done those moves in all the video games we've been ever going after. So, Spencer, do we have any footage of the Chastain move in case someone hasn't seen? I'm not sure if we've got a clip of that. Here it is. So for those of you who missed it, Ross Chastain needed 2 spots at the end of this race to make it in championship. Just put it on the wall and gassed her up and passed him. That's the look from Denny Hamlin. Here he is. And at real speed, it doesn't even look real. It is so
Exactly.
unbelievable, I think is the best way to put it. Chastain ends up beating Hamlin to the line and just blowing around the outside of the mall and how fast he was. So a lot of things come up from this. First off, like you said, your comments on Chastain, we have a little weekly NASCAR pool we do up here with our buds. And I said it midseason, I will never give up Chastain if he's up in the draft. He's just that kind of driver who always, anytime I let him go, he ended up winning or doing well. I think he is very dynamic. He's going to bring some new excitement to the sport. Not afraid to obviously jump out of the box in many ways. But where do we even go from there, Matt? You know, a lot of
Can
people said there should be a rule. There's so many other ways we can go with it. Adam, what do you want to lead us into?
I want just before we get into it, you know how we talked about Ty Gibbs and how he's done so much that can't be undone this year? Ross Chastain in half a lap undid a lot of the hard feelings that Ross Chastain was getting from his competitors. He earned every one of them. He undid a big chunk of that with his ballsy move on Sunday. Like people that couldn't stand him are actually standing back saying, "I got to give the guy credit. Like, oh, holy shit, did you see that?" And it's not easy to undo hard feelings. But not only did Ross succeed with that move, but I think he made some fans out of drivers that hated him.
So they were the fans were booing him in pre-race driver introductions, and really out of all the playoff races I've gone to this year, they were amongst the loudest, and I couldn't figure out why, because I don't know, maybe it's just because it's Martinsville and it's way more intimate and the crowd is on top of you, so you just hear it more. But they really let him have it in pre-race driver introductions. And by the end, he was like, to borrow a pro wrestling term, he was the biggest baby face in the world. He was Hulk Hogan in 1987. And I don't know that drivers' opinions have been changed, because if you go back, and I wrote a story about it too, you know, a lot of drivers want to, you know, feel it was an, you know, Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson said it was embarrassing and it's a bad look for our sport. Some drivers, Joey Logano said that it, you know, it's kind of a cheap way to do what you did, even with the concession that, you know, there's no rule against it yet. Everyone's fear is that instead of like the bump and run being what you do at Martinsville, which you can't do now because the car has so little power and so much grip, have we replaced the bump and run with everyone just going up against the wall on the last lap and, you know, just full send? And it's such an absurd thought that I laugh when I say it out loud, because now I'm picturing in my head, you take the white flag and everyone just drives barrels into the wall. It's such an absurd thought. You couldn't even do this with the old car. And so I think if you really wanted to stop drivers from being able to do this, you have already incentive to stop them, because this car takes so much damage without destroying the car. And that's why we have drivers out with concussions, right? Because the driver absorbs the impact and the car doesn't. And so we have to find some way to have this car, when you make contact, it does shear apart. It does distribute that energy better. And I think that's probably the best way to do it instead of a rules change, because we don't need drivers getting concussed anyway. I don't know what the exact G's that Chastain felt, but that was dangerous. We can't have drivers doing that. Like, it was a cool move, and I have no problem with it. We can just not make it acceptable moving forward, or even permitted with the cars to do those sorts of G's as you're hitting the wall over and over and over again, because you could get hurt. Ross is lucky that the crossover gate in turn 4 wasn't sticking out just a little bit, because we saw at Bristol, I forget who it was, but so many years ago,
Mike Harmon.
catch the crossover gate. Yeah.
Mike
And
Harmon
so
and Michael Waltrip have done it.
that's right. So I don't want to see it again moving forward. And NASCAR is not going to come up with a rule for Phoenix, and probably nor should they. But really, the crux of the matter is that for both safety and competition reasons, the car needs a lot of work during the off season. And so who knows? This may not even be possible, depending on what they do with the car next year. So sometimes things just kind of work themselves out.
I'm of the opinion, a couple thoughts here. So one, I don't think you want to soften up the car a bit because, on that point, yes, we don't want drivers to get hurt, but I think you still need to be able to scrape that wall all day long and not break these cars. Not in that fashion, though. So what kind of rule do you put in? It's almost like the drafting rule at Daytona where they said you guys can't bump draft, so they're allowed to a couple bumps, but you can't hook up. What are you allowed? A 3-second rub rule along the
can't
wall?
lock
It's like,
bumpers.
how do you even police a rule for that? Like, everybody says, oh, we need a rule. Well, let's write a rule and talk about what that rule could even look like. It seems ludicrous. The other point to
Well,
it
here's
is
the rule, right? So here's what's absurd about this. Is there any other scenario in which a car, let's say it looks like a hung throttle, because that's what we all thought it was. Did he hang a throttle
Yep.
and then just drill the wall? How is that not a caution? Now, that's the age-old question in NASCAR. What is and what is not a caution? But someone going full send into a wall and staying into the wall for, 8 seconds, that's a caution more often than not. Maybe that's the rule. If you hit the wall full throttle and you're on it for 3 seconds, we're throwing the yellow.
So to walk us through this, he had to come up with the idea that could work. He had to stuff his car into the wall and not lift going into turn 3. He had to
grabbed
keep
a gear.
that.
He grabbed a
Right,
gear. He went
right.
in 5th gear.
So he gets in there, keeps the car going around the corner, had to keep the car, and I'm not saying he did this all from the seat, but he had to hope that the car would stay on the wall and not come through turn 4 and come across the track and wipe multiple cars out. And then he had to, what were the odds Denny Hamlin would come off the corner and run the bottom just in case something would have happened to Brad Keselowski and Hamlin could have made a move on him? But what are the odds that spot was there? Like, everything that happened, and throw into the mix that Brad Moran didn't throw the yellow when he made this. It's the immaculate reception NASCAR version.
Well, you say that, but by the way, in hindsight, literally none of this mattered because the 6 car got disqualified and he would have been in regardless. But he was told he needed two passes because he owned the tiebreaker, and he ended up passing 5 cars. So really, he went above and beyond what was even required of him at the time. And Keselowski got disqualified for weight, so none of that really even mattered anyway.
Let's look at the other thing, though, guys. So there's very few tracks where this would work and be a successful pass ever. I mean, you're not going to slam it in the wall at Daytona or Talladega. You're not going to ride the wall and beat guys back to the line there. Phoenix, the track is just such a weird shape. It's not going to work there. I mean, there are very few places this could work. So another thing that I saw on social media was also maybe you have to take this race that means a make or break race and take it away from Martinsville and make it somewhere where this move wouldn't work to get in. I think it's a once in a lifetime deal. I don't think you're going to see guys saying it, but you bring up some good points, Matt. They could have very easily frozen the field when he was stuck in the fence coming around 4. I think everybody was so stunned by what we were seeing at that moment. It was, even if you listen to every bit of radio chatter that's out there from that moment, every spotter is going, hey, clear, low, what? what the hell was that? Everybody was shocked by what they saw. And I think just like anything, we're in the rules business here, whether it be sprint cars or Oshweek Speedway or everything we're involved in. And hey, like I like to tell everybody, we don't write the rule book; it was inherited. So once a year, something else gets cracked open that we have to close the gap on. But crazy situation there. I had
You
another
bring
thing
up
we
a
wanted
great
to share.
point.
What's
I
that?
want to just one more thing on this. Talking about rule books, over the course of the last 70 years in stock car racing, most of the gray areas in a rule book to gain advantage were done under the hood or to the body of the car or to the suspension. I can't think of very many instances when the driver could develop a new technique and figure out something to make this work. And I don't think this is going to stick. But this was my challenge on Facebook that I made a post out of, Matt. Can you compare that move? What would be the equivalent of this move in any other sport in the world?
I mean, it's a 99-yard Hail Mary, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's
and
the
a
first thing that
headwind.
comes to mind.
The only
I
thing
guess
that I
it'd
can
be a
think of,
99-yard Hail Mary with like one receiver against the entire defensive backfield.
as far as
it's a walk-off hole-in-one at the Masters on hole 18 when you're, you need one shot to make it happen, and you knock it in. It's astounding. Matt, I got a couple questions for you.
Let me add this real quick though. I know the playoffs are so polarizing amongst like racing purists, and I'm one of them, right? But I love the playoffs, and the reason that this racing purist loves the NASCAR playoffs is that it does encourage this kind of radical thinking, and that it makes racers really go beyond their natural racecraft or their natural instincts and find a figurative gear that doesn't exist, and in this case a literal gear, fifth gear, because they don't use it at Martinsville. And I will always be in favor of having racers have to compromise with themselves and their own integrity. What am I willing to do? And I'll say this, and we can move on. I would rather talk about what Ross Chastain did and have that be the thing than what Ty Gibbs did, because that way you're not wrecking someone else. At worst, you're wrecking yourself, and that's always a better outcome.
Yeah. That's a great point. I think that is a great point to end that conversation on, Clint.
A couple quick things I want to get through, Matt, before we let go. Maybe 5 more minutes if you got the time, Matt. Want to get into some Penty stuff because I know you're a fan of the Pentys and probably one of the best guys we've got in the South waving the flag for the NASCAR Penty Series. So we'll get to that in a second. Last thing I got for you on this, and then we want to look at the Super Late that took flight there in one of those races last week, which is pretty wild too. We got video of that. That'll be a Bergman video of the week. But the last question I got for you regarding NASCAR, they brought in this new car and this new charter system to even the field. I think Trackhouse Racing showed that it's been a success on the business end. What your thoughts on that, Matt?
Well, I want to push back on that a little bit, because people are like, oh, this is a startup team. It's a new team. It's a 2-year-old team. That's Chip Ganassi Racing. And the entire one team that is going to race for the championship on Sunday at Phoenix, that is the 42 Cup team from the past couple of years with Ross Chastain and Phil Surgeon. Listen, the Trackhouse model, Justin Marks and Pitbull and their way of thinking is new, but the infrastructure, the engineering core, that is a pre-existing team. So like when you say Trackhouse is racing for a championship and wow, it's impressive that a new team can come in and compete. Yeah, that's partially true. But if I had told you 2 years ago that the Chip Ganassi Racing 42 team is going to race for a championship, you might go, yeah, 2 years ago, that was, Kyle Larson. So yeah, I could see Kyle Larson and the 42 team racing for a championship. And, there's so many other factors too, right? You said the charters and the cars, and it is true that the the window of competition is so much tighter. There's a lot more parity, and that you can see a greater variety of teams contend for a championship. So it's true. Just don't lose sight of the fact that is the old Chip Ganassi 42.
Penty Series, what are you hearing down south? What's the buzz?
Yeah, so like I think it's kind of an echo chamber here, right? I mean, me talking to you guys. I mean, I clearly love the tour, and I share my love of the tour frequently. So I get a ton of feedback from people who are saying, I love it too. And I like to think, because of my own vanity or my own arrogance, that I've had some contribution of that. And I don't say that
You
with ego. I
definitely
say
have.
yeah, but I say it with pride because, like anyone, when you love something, you want to be able to share it with people. And I have a large enough microphone that I can be able to reach a lot of people, and it is super rewarding when I have people tell me on Twitter or tell me in person. It's like I had never heard of the NASCAR Penty Series. I never knew that there was a Canadian national NASCAR tour, and there is increased enthusiasm. It helps to have live streaming on Flow, so it's really accessible to a lot of people. The schedule is really interesting. Adding a dirt race, obviously, Oshweekend was awesome because now you've got dirt people talking about it, and you have some dirt aces come down, and I'm excited to see that event grow. So, as someone who has loved the tour for a long time and just wanted to share it with people down here and to see it start to take hold, it's just rewarding, right? It's, in my opinion, it is my favorite racing series in the world right now. Love the roster. It's the perfect car. I would throw away the next gen. I would get rid of the Xfinity car, which is my second favorite car. I say let's make the Cup Series car the Penty's car because it is that good.
Awesome.
It's actually that bad. It's that bad, which is what makes it good.
It's so bad that it's good, right?
Yes, yeah. It's just a couple of antiquated things and a couple of low buck things, and it just makes it beautiful.
It's a 1992 Cup Series car.
You're not
Let's
wrong.
jump into our Burger Barn video of the week. This is one of the races down south. The late models getting together, and one of them takes flight. Matt, this is an interesting deal. Run it, Spencer, and then we'll talk about it. Maybe is this something we need to worry about? But this is, you don't see this too often.
I would not want to be Austin Nason, and there he goes. Car lifts up in the air, catches Williams Sawallich, Cole Butcher in the wall. I have never seen a super late model do that.
Show it again, Spencer, if you can. And it just kind of takes off there, Matt.
Yeah.
Adam, your thoughts?
I'm slightly ignorant, but I love that announcer. I don't know who it is, but I could listen to him all night.
Be Austin Nason, and there he goes.
That
Car
is
lifts
Alan
up in the
Dietz,
air.
the dulcet
Catches
tones of
Oh,
Alan
is it?
Dietz.
Cole Butcher in the
Yeah.
wall.
Is that Alan? Okay.
I've never seen a super late model do that.
So
But,
that's
I guess
the
I
All-American
know who
400.
Alan is. Mhm.
Yeah, so that's this race is the All-American 400 that we talked about earlier at Fairground Speedway Nashville. And a lot of people said, well, how could a super late model do that on a short track? And the one thing that I want to remind everyone, there is no short track like Fairground Speedway Nashville. It is almost 6/10 of a mile, super high banked. So it's a super fast track. This is a car that predominantly races on, quarter miles and just bull ring types of short tracks. And so you put these cars, which are built super lightweight and have big power relative to the size of the track, and they're super aero now. So you turn them around backwards, it's like an airplane because it's the reverse aero effect, right? So I would just remind everyone, Nashville is so fast. This is not the norm because there's just not a lot of tracks like it. I mean, even when they go race the Milwaukee Mile, which is obviously much larger, it's flat. And so it's just a combination of the speeds, the banking, being turned around backwards, how aero the cars are. I'm sure at some point I need to reach out to 5-Star and just say, do you guys have data or information? Is it something that you're concerned about? But I will say, not that we shouldn't have concern, but the fact that Cole Butcher, Austin Nason, who was the driver that went airborne, and William Sawallich, who ran into it, they all walked away and said they're feeling okay. That's a positive sign, right? I mean, that's not to say that it's fine and we shouldn't at least have the conversation. But that I'll say this: this is kind of what makes the All-American 400 such a spectacle and so special. It's a big deal race. They had 38 cars. Would have had 39. The race got moved from Sunday to Saturday. Sammy Smith couldn't race. And it's a super important race. Everyone brings their best stuff. And Cole Butcher was willing to go 3 wide. Canadian Cole Butcher was willing to go 3 wide at Nashville, which is probably not a good idea, but it's for a guitar. And that's how important that race is to all three of those guys. They were willing to go 3 wide, taking the white. That was the last lap. 3 wide, taking the white flag, trying to win a guitar trophy.
Awesome. Matt, we appreciate your time, all of it tonight. It's always great
Clint,
to get all
I got
these
one
topics
more.
off our chest. Sure.
It's just an analogy, Matt, and because I struggled so long to think what I could compare Ross Chastain's move to and how it's going to change the sport moving forward and how it's going to be remembered. Not change the sport, but how it's going to be an iconic moment. The best comparison I could come up with was Jimmy Superfly Snuka off the top of the cage at WrestleMania. Because it had never been done, it had never been thought of. You come off the top rope, that's why he was Superfly. Got up on top of the cage, and people still talk about it today. That is the best comparison I could come up with, yay or nay, Matt.
Yeah, you're speaking my language, right? So I don't want to get too nerdy because I feel like we're going to lose half of our audience if we start talking like 1980s WWF. But yeah, you're totally spot on.
Right.
It's going to be memorable for the right or wrong reasons. It probably ruined his career, shortened his career for sure. But anyhow,
but
I had
I'll
to share
add this
that
too.
with you.
What's going to happen on Saturday in the Xfinity race is going to be the Hulk Hogan Andre body slam because someone's going to body slam, metaphorically, Ty Gibbs.
I second that. Thanks, Matt. Always great talking to you.
I got to tell you guys real quick. You guys are my absolute favorite show to do. So, like, anytime you guys want to have me on, it is my favorite conversation. I can't wait to go back north of the border 2023 to do this in person. But love being on the show. Love what both of you guys bring to racing across the board. Y'all are awesome. Thank you.
We appreciate
Matt.
you. Likewise, Matt.
Tell our viewers where they can catch up with some of your stuff, Matt. Give yourself a plug here.
Yeah, I would just say Twitter and Facebook because I freelance for so many people and I work for so many people. It's far easier to say follow me on social and you'll see all the links, all the stories, all the videos, all the interviews. So that's Matt Weaver RA on Twitter and Matt Weaver Motorsports on Facebook, and you'll get the full gamut of my content.
Hey, if I
Thanks,
just
Matt.
follow those, do I not have to see Chicago Cubs talk anymore?
That's
Like,
right. You can unfollow the J Matt Weaver. That's where all the nerdy pro wrestling and Cubs baseball stuff is. Individual mileage may vary.
Fair enough. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Always good to have Matt with us. We'll be reaching out to him through the seasons as always, and it's great to have a voice.
He just loves it.
Yeah,
he loves it like we do.
For the Penty's crew down south, it's big.
I like that he's brought that passion to the highest level. He is probably the most credible, well, maybe not the most credible, but one of the most credible journalists in the sport right now. But he still has that excitement, the love for it.
We got a few things to jump through here before we, I think Hunsinger's going to join us, didn't you say? Oh, there he is. He just popped on. So, do you want to talk to Dave first, or do you want to jump into our final topics? Let's talk to Dave since he's here, and then we'll get into our final topics. We're going to talk about the merge between APC and APC and NASCAR today. What's going on at Sunset? We reached out to all the particulars there. We'll give you an update on that. So, quickly, let's have our interview with Dave. Dave Hunsinger.
Looking good, buddy.
Yeah, well, I down 15 pounds, so I'm on the right track. So
I had to give you that much head start.
I watched Adam eat an 6-inch cheesecake on Saturday night, so you keep rocking, Dave. You're on the right path.
I think if I ate a 6-inch cheesecake, that's my caloric intake for the day.
Really is.
It should have been asked for the week.
Dave Hunsinger is the flagman at Ohsweken Speedway. Dave and I have known each other since we were kids. Of course, Ryan Hunsinger's brother, sprint car driver Ryan Hunsinger, Bob and Roger Slack's cousin, a descendant of Bob Slack and family. And I don't even remember how it started, but I think I was in the tower one night at Ashweek, Clint, talking about I need to make use of this off season. I've got to shed some weight. And Dave, I don't know how he flags races and text messages me. Like
Well,
he,
that night you were up in Brighton. You were up in
oh,
Brighton, and I was watching it on G-Force, and you had mentioned about wanting to lose weight. So I messaged you while I was watching at home. But yeah, I do message you on the flags.
it's pretty impressive. So the challenge, Clint, was laid. We said, look, why don't we have some fun with this? Let's make it a weight loss challenge. So it's Dave Hunsinger versus Adam Ross. The goal is to lose as much weight as we can before opening night of next year. We wanted to have some fun, do it for a good cause. So basically the way it's going to work, we'll set up maybe a Facebook page or something where people can share their allegiance for either Dave or for Adam. We will be taking sponsors, donations. So there's going to be multiple winners, whoever raises the most money, and of course whoever loses the most weight. And Clinton, thanks to you brought a lot of common sense to the fold. I will be losing weight for the Cambridge Food Bank, and Dave, you will be losing weight for?
I'll be going for the Caledonia Food Bank.
And then we threw it back to you because somebody did make a comment, Clinton, on my post saying, hey, you should do something on Six Nations. You should do something in Ashweek. And so I sort of spit a challenge to you, Clinton, which I think you accepted.
Yeah. We'll definitely be getting behind this deal. Whatever you guys can round up, we'll be matching at the Speedway.
So the Speedway is going to match and donate on Six Nations. So and really what it is, more so than sponsoring me or pledging to Dave or whatever, get involved with this because people like us in the racing business, we live horrible lifestyles in the summertime. We abuse our bodies. So if you want to do something about it, come along for the journey with us. So my pre-weight, we weighed at Ashweek Speedway on the last race of the year. I weighed in at 324 pounds.
I weighed in at, I believe it was 254. So, I mean, you do have a bit of a weight advantage there, but I think if we do it by the weight percentage in that it'll make it a little bit even. So
we're going to do it as a percentage of weight lost, but that's what we're starting with. And Dave, I would have got back to your text earlier on, but I was at the gym.
Oh yeah, well, I'll have you know that I just had a 25-minute bike ride watching you guys talk to Matt Weaver, and I am honored to be following up behind Matt because he is quite the guy to follow up behind. So I think it's going to be a great challenge. I think once we get promoting it more and more, I think people are going to get behind it, and it's going to be great. But what if people want to join in and say, hey, I'm on Team Flagman and I'm going to lose weight with you, then all more to it. Let's do it.
And some might say I'm on Team Loudmouth. What do you think, Clint?
Well, Greg threw down the challenge back, and he said he would eat one Blizzard for every pound you lost, Dave. And I said I'd eat one hot dog for every pound Adam lost. So seeing him eat that cheesecake on Saturday night just made me feel great.
No,
and I think I started looking into hot dog launchers so we could do something from the flag stand during intermission.
Yeah. We've got some fun stuff that we want to do next year at the Speedway. So I'll drop this on you tonight, folks. If you have any groups, community groups, even a minor baseball or soccer team, whatever, people that you think should be introduced to Ashweek Speedway, Dave and I also want to get together and sort of sponsor one group every Friday night next season to come out to Ashweek Speedway, take in a night at the races, and start introducing some new people to the sport. So we will work this out. We'll get links over the next couple of weeks, and we'll probably do it as a Facebook page. I think that's probably the easiest. So we appreciate people's support. But David, it really is fun to have this challenge together, and I think we're going to do some cool things at the Speedway in the coming years.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I just started back working there, and I think it was June. Doug got a hold of me, and you guys as a team have just been absolutely fantastic to work with. And and it's been a joy to be out there. And now that we've got this going, it's just going to add one more element, I think, to what we can offer. So.
And I'm going to send everyone Dave's home address. You can send him cakes. You can send him pies. all the baked goods you want.
Yesterday, I did a service call at my Aunt Kathy's, and she's like, oh, you were supposed to be here last week, so I froze this for you. And she gives me a great big apple crisp, and it's like, I'm trying to lose weight here. I can't be eating this. So it's been eaten in portions.
I always have loved Aunt Kathy, and she loves me.
Absolutely.
Right on, Dave. Thanks for being here. Good luck.
Thanks for having me. Look forward to it.
Yeah, we'll be talking about this through the off season.
Well, Adam, another hour has gotten away from us that quickly. Let's talk about some hot topics. What do you got?
Yeah, and let's dedicate next week to a lot of conversation about APC and NASCAR. I mean, it's super fresh right now. I think we should make some initial commentary and then plan.
So, first off, I reached out to Dave Gainforth today. Said, congrats on the merge. I said, we want to have one on the show tonight between 8 and 9. He said, how about next week when Alex Nagy is back from Vegas? It'd be better. I don't want to speak out of turn. So Dave wants to make sure they've got things proper. Obviously, with Alex being out of line, we're not going to get a comment from him. And on that side, the other thing that's going on is, there was going to be some sort of divide with Sunset announcing that they were going to have their weekly modified division come to life there. I reached out to Brian Todish, and, I think it was you reached out to Brian this week, right? And he said he'd rather wait until after his meeting this weekend as well. So they both have till next Tuesday.
Yes, from Brian's end, and it might be further down the road with Brian, he was very positive, very cordial. He says, I think it's best that we do some talking on our side first. He says, but I'm really excited about what's to come. I think it's a great division to bolster the Sunset Speedway lineup. So it was all positive, the tone from Brian, and I think, it'll be tough. But one thing that could happen from this that would be very, very good, Clinton, is if these two groups or an amalgamated group of modifieds start to
act
wash
like a club?
away. No, God no. Start to wash away some of the other divisions that don't have cars. Like it's time for the strong to eat the weak. It's natural selection.
Wow. What we need is some pricky promoters. We need more guys out there like me who are going to say, no, take your 10 cars and we're not interested. Do you know how many divisions, Adam, in the past 6 years I've been in Ush Weekend that I've had to say, if you can't bring us more than 16 cars, minimum, we're not interested. So a bit of commentary on this whole situation, okay? So there was a divide coming with NASCAR, and I'm speaking out of tune. I probably shouldn't even be saying anything, but from what I can tell and from what I know, there were a bunch of hot rod drivers who were pissed off with Dave Gainforth and the current management, let's call it that. Dave still had his group of core drivers who supported him. There was a coup in the making. There was a bunch of drivers who were trying to get a deal. They messaged us to see if we would be interested. Let's put it this way. They messaged me to ask what our rates would be to do live G-Force races that aren't NASCAR races that are hot rods. So there was a divide in the making. By this coming together, I think, and then whatever was going on with Sunset was going to split that deck a bit more because some guys would maybe drop off the tour. It may bring new guys. You just don't know. But by pairing up with the APC tour, now APC has 4 solid divisions. There's been a lot of questions what's going to happen to the super stocks out of all this. They've said it multiple times. Alex Nagy and Luke, they love their super stock division, and it's one of their best, healthiest things they've got. So that's going to continue to be strong. I think it gives them 2 other divisions that when they start booking races on weekends at places, they're bringing in all 4 divisions, covering the end. It's a brilliant plan. And what does this mean for them? Well, we have a 3-year deal still with APC to cover. So that means if you're an NASCAR or hot rod or modified guy and you're going to race these events that I'm assuming are going to go in conjunction with APC Superstock, you're going to be on G-Force more. You're going to get better coverage. So, I don't know. I think it's a positive for Dave.
Yeah, I think it's a positive for Dave. There's going to be questions on both sides. To Jesse's point, yeah, Andy Kamrath seems like he's quite vocal on Facebook, talking about there not being a vote. Oscar hasn't really run as a club, to my knowledge, in years. Like, if you go on their website, it still lists their vice president as Gary Elliott. Gary Elliott moved to the Maritimes how many years ago? Um, so, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, and it could work out well. It could work out win-win. It could blow up and be a debacle. Time will tell. But I think we should give everybody the benefit of the doubt and have a chat with them in the coming weeks and see how the chips fall.
Yeah, there's definitely moves going on. There's been a lot of talk how we could maybe get everything together to get rid of some of the weaker divisions. I don't know. When you still have 7 or 8 guys clinging on to it, it's tough to just get rid of them when they've been loyal customers for 20 years.
You want my thought?
Yeah, of course.
It's gonna turn into just like road racing. You show up, you pay to play. Doesn't matter if there's a crowd or not. You put on your races. You don't get paid. You go home. That's where all the divisions are going to land that don't have enough cars or don't have enough organization. It'll be just like a regional track day at some of these road courses. And some of those days can be really cool. They can be a lot of fun. But when it comes to a prime time show putting on an event, and the Flamborough Monster Truck Show is a perfect example. All we need to do is show that image. Racers need to understand. We all need to understand that every racetrack owner out there can make far more money with their facility doing things that are not car races. Spencer, do you have that image? Remember this. Burn this into your mind. Putting on car races is not the most profitable thing a racetrack promoter can do. There are things they can do that will fill their facility, drive more profit, sell more hot dogs. And if we're not careful, as a whole, if we do too much pissing and moaning, too much complaining, racetracks aren't going to close their doors. They're going to say, get the hell out of here with your race car. We don't need you anymore. I'm going to book 3 monster truck shows a year. I'm going to book a couple of enduros and demolition derbies. And that'll bring me so much less stress in my life. Look at that. You've never seen Flamborough Speedway with that many people in the stands in the last 30 years.
You and I were discussing it too. In order to help the sport, I would have loved to have seen them put on a demonstration race. This is the only time I'm going to get with you on the wrestling deal, where, like you said, we get Pete Vanderwist and Garrett and Lane out there, and we pay them all show up money and say, hey, guys, we're here to entertain. We're here to hook this crowd. Go out, do some passing, give us a good finish. 10 cars, let's just make it happen. I mean, I didn't see the layout where they had stuff all down the straightaways and that, but you got to work that in when you know you're going to have a crowd like that. So we need to kind of pump it up.
And reason being, Clinton, explain it in case it's not obvious to people.
People don't even know what's happening right there.
You've got a racetrack and you've got people in the stands that have never come to your racetrack. You need to show them what you do on a regular Saturday night. You need to sell the sizzle. You need to really drive it home.
Couple of topics we're going to get to a bit. Obviously, we'll talk more about the Oscar merger with APC, and hopefully Brian Toddles will be ready to talk about what's going on at Sunset. We just covered off the Flamborough Monster Truck deal. We'll talk next week about the Announcer Summit and the World Finals coming up this weekend. We'll talk about showing the replays as well, as I'll go on a rant about that and why we can't do that. Last topic here, there were a couple of questions about the Action Sprint Tour.
Yes.
Earlier in the question. Earlier in the show, we were asked, and of course now I can't find it.
It was basically a point. It was from Doc Stater saying,
yeah,
is the Action Sprinter going to become a big national series like the World of Outlaws or that sort of thing in Canada?
Yeah, so the plan is to continue. I'm just trying to find the exact question here so I can read it to you.
Yeah, it's
Here it is. Do you think the Action Sprint Tour will reach a national sprint car series like the World of Outlaws do and the sprint cars in Australia? I mean, it has potential. You look at the growth. Oshweekend has it weekly. Brockville has it weekly. Can-Am has it weekly. Humberstone was working on it. We're now branching out to an east and west tour here in Ontario to prevent the guys from having to travel as much as they were in the past, because we're getting healthier to have enough drivers in the east. I think if you watched my State of the Union address with the crate sprint teams a week ago, the talk was that I would like to find a national scalable sponsor, meaning someone who would give us 5,000, let's say, per track. And right now we have, let's say, 4 or 5 tracks involved. So they need to give 25 this year. But if we get up to 8 tracks, they have to agree to be at 40,000 in 3 years. I'd like to see it be the Coca-Cola, let's say, for example, the Coca-Cola crate sprints, and that would give them half the entitlement naming rights. So that would allow us to give every track that stays on our seals and our rule package and abides with us a $5,000 kick to their point fund. That could also be doubled up with their home track sponsor. So, for example, at Oshweekend, it could be the Coca-Cola or the Strickland's Coca-Cola crate sprints. At Brockville, it could be the Thousand Island RV Coca-Cola crate sprints. That would allow us to really branch things out on a national level. I think the coverage we've been giving, putting national events together like the Crate Nationals, where we're paying an $11,000 engine and $5,000 the next night, is going to get more and more drivers to make the jump. The healthiest thing we have going for us right now, Adam, is drivers getting out of the Action Sprint Tour. A lot of young, up-and-coming hot shoes are moving on to the 360s, which, of course, with us having our hands around that, we're proud of that too. It's not like we're losing them. They're moving up to the top step. I mean, more and more drivers. Darren Dryden's jumping into it this year. DJ Christie's going to be 360 full-time again. We've got a lot of new up-and-coming kids that are going that way. I was on Tyler Palace's page today, and he even mentioned 360 full-time. I don't know whether that's happening or not, but I did read it.
TJ Martin, we've got to pump that up next week. He's putting on some iRacing events, and he puts his heart and soul into it. Just a good fella from the Six Nations area, going to be putting on an iRacing tournament. So let's try to work that in next week and really pump it up, because I want to see him succeed.
Right on. Working overtime tonight. Make sure you go support everybody who supports us. Check out our latest sponsors, TrueNorth.bet, CigarPort.ca, of course, our good buddies at Quick Wick and Fast Eddie, along with everybody else who gets behind us. We appreciate everybody who makes it happen. Spencer, thanks for all you do, and we'll see everybody again next Tuesday.
Thanks for joining.